Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. There's still a dent on the pillow next to mine. Not because she slept there last night, no. That dent's been there for weeks. Maybe months. I can't bring myself to fix it. I tried once. Smoothed it out with my palm, flipped the pillow, fluffed it. But 10 minutes later, I recreated the same shape with my fist. Same weight. Same curve. Same absence. It's pathetic. I know it. My friends don't. They think I'm doing better. I wear clean shirts again. I laugh at the right parts of their stories. I show up. I eat. I nod when someone says, "Time heals everything." But none of them were there that night. The night she said the 7 words that pulled the ground out from under me like a cheap rug. I just want to be alone tonight. No fight. No drama. Just that. Like a switch flipped. No tears. No slamming doors. Just a gentle dismissal, like a dog being told to go lie down. That's what it felt like. But that wasn't the real gut punch. The real twist came 24 hours later, when I found out she never actually stayed home that night. No, she didn't want to be alone. She just didn't want to be with me. She was with someone else. Someone taller. Cooler. The kind of guy who doesn't cry during Pixar movies or read ingredients on shampoo bottles. The kind of guy who never asked her if she was sure everything was okay 3 times a day. I found out because I saw them. By accident. They were at the farmer's market of all places. Laughing about peaches. Peaches. She hates peaches. She once told me the fuzz makes her skin crawl. But there she was, letting him feed her one like it was a rom-com. I didn't confront her. Not then. Instead, I went home. I opened a new document. I wrote down everything I ever did to keep our relationship alive. Every compromise, every canceled trip, every swallowed argument. It filled 17 pages. Then I wrote just one sentence at the bottom. Tonight, I'll give her exactly what she asked for. And I did. That's when everything really started to unravel. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the hum of a life I no longer recognized. Every spin of the blade felt like a countdown. To what? I wasn't sure. Maybe to the moment I'd finally break. Maybe to the moment I'd finally get clarity. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Or maybe I never fell asleep. I made coffee I didn't drink, sat on the couch, and stared at the dent in the pillow again. I kept thinking about the peach. How she bit into it like it was the most natural thing in the world. As if she hadn't once told me eating fruit with her hands made her feel barbaric. People change, sure. But not like that. Not overnight. No, this wasn't a change. This was performance. And the worst part? I didn't even know who the audience was anymore. Around noon, I opened her laptop. Don't ask me why. I'm not proud of it. Maybe I was looking for an answer. Or maybe I was hoping not to find anything at all. To prove myself wrong. To be the paranoid, overthinking boyfriend she always teased me about being. But when I lifted the lid and saw she hadn't logged out, it was like the universe gave me permission. The first tab that popped open was her email. It was a draft. No subject line. No recipient. Just one line. If I tell him, I want it to be on my terms. I froze. Was it about me? Of course it was. Who else had the right to be told anything? What did she want to say? What hadn't she said? I clicked into her search history next. My name. Followed by, how to break up without guilt. Does emotional cheating count? Is it normal to fall out of love? And then the one that really twisted the knife. Can you love 2 people at the same time? I closed the laptop. I didn't slam it. I didn't even breathe heavily. I just sat back, stared at the wall, and let the slow drip of betrayal sink in like a faucet leak you've been ignoring for too long. You hear it, you feel it, but you tell yourself it's not that bad. Until suddenly your whole floor is rotting beneath you. I should have confronted her, called her, done anything. But I didn't. Instead, I printed the email draft. Just the one line. Folded it. Slipped it into my wallet behind an old receipt from our anniversary dinner. I needed to hold on to it. Not as proof. Not for revenge. Just so I'd stop convincing myself I imagined it all. That night, I cleaned the apartment. I scrubbed the tub. Washed the dishes. Took out the trash. I vacuumed behind the couch for the first time in 6 months. It wasn't for her. It was for me. Some weird, desperate attempt to create a clean space for the chaos I knew was coming. When she got home, she looked surprised. The apartment sparkled. Wow, did someone die? She joked, dropping her keys. I looked her in the eyes and said, not yet. She laughed. Thought I was being sarcastic. But I wasn't. And the countdown? It had officially started. 2 days later, She told me she needed a break. Not a breakup. A break. The kind where no one's technically guilty yet, but everything already feels over. She called it a reset trip. Said she was going to her cousin's cabin upstate. No service, no Wi-Fi. Just nature, sketch pads, and time to reconnect with herself. She even packed a book she'd already read twice. Something she only did when she wanted to look like she was doing something deep without actually engaging. I didn't argue. I just nodded like a guy who trusted her. But inside, I was replaying the peach. The search history. The half-written email she never sent. I remembered how she smiled the day before she left. Not like someone running from a failing relationship. No, like someone excited. Like someone holding a secret they'd convinced themselves was harmless. She left on a Thursday morning. Took her favorite duffel, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "I'll text you if I get a signal." She never did. But he did. Okay, not a text. Not directly. But through a stupid little mistake that unraveled her perfect plan. I was scrolling through social media later that night. Not stalking. Just scrolling. Distraction. Nothing big. But then I saw a post from Reed. A guy she always claimed was just an old friend. They'd worked together years ago. He had this smug, vinyl record collecting energy. The kind of guy who wears rings for no reason. I never liked him. His post was just a picture of a fireplace and a wine glass. Caption, "Weekend recharge." But in the corner of the photo, barely noticeable, was the exact same book she had packed. Same red spine. Same worn corners. She hated bringing books to parties. Always said it felt too performative. So why was hers sitting on his table? I clicked his tagged location. It wasn't upstate. It was the coast. A rented house with a hot tub and full signal. So much for no Wi-Fi. And that's when something broke in me. Not in an angry way. Not even in a sad way. It was worse than that. It was numb. I sat on the floor in the kitchen for a long time, just staring at the fridge like it might whisper something that would make this make sense. That's when I started planning. Not revenge. I'm not that guy. I'm not interesting enough to be vengeful. But clarity? Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted the truth without her edits. Without her careful omissions and practiced blinks. I wanted her to walk into a truth she couldn't spin. So I printed every screenshot. The fireplace. The book. The location tag. His smug face. I put them in a folder, labeled it Weekend Recharge. Then I changed the password on our Wi-Fi. Turned off our shared streaming accounts. Moved her toothbrush into the drawer under the sink. Subtle things. Easy to explain if she noticed. But disruptive enough to make her ask questions. And I waited. The night she came home, she smelled like rosemary shampoo and foreign laundry detergent. She smiled like she hadn't just vanished with another man for 4 days. "Hey," she said, hanging up her jacket. "Missed you." I handed her the folder. No words. Just the folder. She didn't open it at first. She just stared at it like it was ticking. And in that moment, I saw it. The flicker of panic. The collapse of her perfect script. I didn't yell. I didn't even look at her. I just said, "You didn't want to be alone. You just didn't want to be seen." She didn't deny it. She didn't say anything. But the silence? That told me everything. She didn't open the folder that night. She just stood there holding it like it was a loaded weapon, one she wasn't trained to use. She looked up at me, then back down at the manila edges, and finally, without a word, placed it on the kitchen counter beside the fruit bowl, ironically, beside a peach she had bought a few days before leaving. Still untouched. Still fuzzy. She slept on the couch that night. Or at least, she pretended to. I heard her shifting, heard the fake sighs people make when they want you to know they're still awake. But I didn't go to her. I just lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, wondering how long you can love someone before the shape of that love turns against you. Like mold growing in the corners of a once beautiful room. In the morning, the folder was gone. She hadn't said anything. I didn't ask. But I noticed things. Her sudden silence. The way she avoided eye contact, like I had caught her naked and guilty in some spiritual way. She walked slower. Her makeup changed. Softer. Lighter. Like she was trying to look more honest. And for a moment, maybe half a second, I felt bad. Because I still loved her. I hated myself for it, but I did. I wanted her to deny it, to lie to my face with enough conviction that I could pretend to believe her. But she didn't give me that. She gave me nothing. And then, 3 days later, she left the apartment again. Just for an hour, she said. Grocery run. But something was off. She'd left her phone on the charger. Unlocked. She never did that. I sat on the couch staring at it like it was radioactive. I didn't want to be the guy who checks. I had promised myself I wouldn't. But the truth is, I already was that guy. I'd been that guy since the night she said she wanted to be alone. So I opened her messages. I didn't need to dig far. There it was, a thread with someone saved as J. Nothing too obvious. But coded. Flirty. Cryptic. Like two people trying not to get caught, which ironically made them easier to catch. And then, buried in the attachments, I found a photo. Not of him. Of a key. Rusted, old-fashioned, ornate. Resting on a velvet cloth. Caption. Still where you left it. I had never seen that key before. I knew every drawer in our place, every lock, every creak of every cabinet. That key didn't belong to me. Or to us. That key was part of another life. One she had carefully kept sealed until now. When she came back from her so-called grocery run, I didn't say a word. But I followed her movements like a ghost. She was too casual, humming softly. No groceries in hand. Just a box of crackers and a bottle of juice. She kissed my cheek. Too soft. Too intentional. That night, when she fell asleep. Deeply, heavily, like someone who felt too safe. I got up. I didn't go through her things. I went through ours. Because here's the thing about secrets. They're like rotten fruit behind a mirror. Sooner or later, the smell leaks out. I tapped every surface. Measured shadows. Counted floorboards. And then I noticed something odd about the bathroom mirror. The one we'd argued about replacing because it was crooked. It wasn't crooked. It was loose. Behind it, wedged between insulation and a hollow gap in the wall, was a small velvet bag. Inside it, the key, and a folded receipt. From a storage unit 3 towns over. Rented in her name. Last accessed, 5 days ago. I stared at it for a long time. My pulse was loud in my ears, louder than my thoughts. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was a new room in the house I thought I knew. One I never had a key to. Until now. And whatever was inside that storage unit. I had a sick feeling it was going to change everything. I didn't go right away. Not the next day. Not even the one after that. I kept that rusted key in the back pocket of my jeans like it might disappear if I didn't look at it too long. I don't know if I was afraid of what I'd find or afraid I already knew. Maribel started acting strange. Not guilty strange, but careful. Like someone walking barefoot across broken glass they'd scattered themselves. She was quieter. Cooked more. Played our old playlists while folding laundry she didn't use to fold. She was doing the relationship equivalent of putting fresh flowers on a grave. I let her. I smiled. I played along. But every moment I wasn't pretending was spent thinking about that key. The velvet bag. The damn mirror. And what it meant that she hid it so deliberately. You don't stash something behind a bathroom mirror unless you believe what's on the other side might shatter you. That Saturday, she left for a brunch with coworkers. I didn't ask who. Didn't pretend to care. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I grabbed the key, the folded receipt, and drove. The storage facility was older than I expected. No glass doors. No security gate. Just rows of rust-colored units like tired soldiers in the sun. I parked, heart thudding, and walked to Unit 117. The key turned with a soft metallic click, like it had been waiting for me. The door creaked up, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. There wasn't much inside. No dead body, no flashing neon sign screaming she lied. That would have been easier. What I found was worse, because it was subtle. Intentional. There was a table in the center, draped in a white linen cloth. Clean. Unwrinkled. On top sat a box of old letters. Dozens. All addressed to J. Some opened, some not. Some folded into tiny squares like she'd wanted to forget them, but couldn't bear to destroy. There were also framed photos. Not of him. Of her. Alone. Laughing. One of her in the rain, holding a coffee cup, mascara running down her face like she didn't care. Another of her on a beach at night, sitting by a bonfire, eyes closed like she was praying or pretending to be someone else. I didn't recognize the versions of her in those pictures. And that's when it hit me. This place wasn't about him. It was about her. This was a shrine to the version of herself she thought she couldn't be with me. The wild, detached, mysterious girl who wrote romantic letters and took photos no one ever saw. She wasn't hiding an affair. She was hiding her identity. And somehow, I was still the villain in her story. I looked through the letters. Most were dated years ago. Before me. During me. After we moved in together. She'd kept writing even when she claimed she wasn't seeing anyone else. Some were angry. others full of longing. One just said, "I'm sorry I keep choosing comfort over you." But the worst one was one she hadn't sent. It wasn't even addressed. It just said, "He doesn't see me anymore. He just sees the version of me that doesn't scare him." And below that, in smaller handwriting, "I miss being someone else." I sat down on the floor of the storage unit and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it finally made sense. All of it. The distance, the lies, the peach, the trip, the folder she never opened. I wasn't just losing her. I had never really had her. Not fully. And the worst part? She wasn't leaving me for another man. She was leaving me for a version of herself I never met. When I got back home, she was sitting on the couch, legs curled under her, watching a documentary. She smiled like nothing had happened. "How was your day?" she asked. I smiled back. Eye-opening. It's strange how someone can sit 3 feet away from you and feel like a stranger. Not because they've changed, but because now you see through them. Like a magician you finally caught slipping the card up their sleeve. You smile, but it's different now. It's not real, it's performance. But then again, maybe it never was. Maribel and I didn't talk about anything real for the next few days. She acted like everything was fine. She made us dinner, small talk, complimented a shirt I hadn't worn in a year. She even laughed at one of my jokes, and I mean really laughed, like the sound was trying to reach some older version of herself. But I knew. I had seen her other world. The hidden storage unit. The photographs of her being someone else. The notes she never sent. I knew I wasn't the villain. But I also wasn't the hero. I was just in the way. I think that's what cut the deepest. That I had never really been chosen, just tolerated. I was the person she settled into like a warm sweater on a cold day. Comfortable, familiar, quiet. But not exciting. Not dangerous. Not the kind of man you build altars to in storage units. And yet, I couldn't leave. Not because I still loved her, though maybe I did. But because I wanted to see how far this game would go before it collapsed under its own weight. So I played along. I started doing little things, subtle moves, just to see how she'd react. I moved the sugar to a different shelf. Put her hairbrush in the drawer instead of the counter. Changed the passcode on the TV. Nothing big. Just enough to make her feel like something was off. Like reality was starting to unravel at the edges. She noticed. I could see it in the way she paused when reaching for things. The hesitation before she asked me questions she already knew the answers to. And most of all, the way she started watching me the way I used to watch her. One night, she brought up a documentary about psychology and gaslighting. She said it casually. Too casually. "They say the worst kind of manipulation is the quiet kind," she murmured, pouring wine. "Where you don't even realize it's happening until you've stopped trusting your own memory." I just smiled and said, "Sounds familiar." She froze, then smiled back. That's when I knew. We weren't in a relationship anymore. We were in a war. A cold, civil, silent war of nods and knowing glances and unspoken accusations. And the battlefield wasn't a courtroom or a screaming match. It was the fridge, the closet, the spaces between sentences. And still, neither of us blinked. Until the morning I woke up to find her phone unlocked on the counter again. But this time, on purpose. The screen showed an open message. From me. Except I had never sent it. It read, "I know everything. I saw the photos. I read the letters. I know who you are." She left it there like bait. Like a challenge. Like she was daring me to deny it. Or own it. I didn't touch the phone. I just walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, and asked her if she wanted eggs. She said yes. But her voice shook. And for the first time in months, she looked scared. She started journaling again. I noticed the notebook tucked into her nightstand like a bad habit she'd picked back up. Brown leather, pages curled slightly at the corners. I had seen it once, a year ago, before everything cracked open. Back then it was full of grocery lists and inspirational quotes she copied from podcasts. Now it was heavier. Secretive. She would wait until she thought I was asleep, then get out of bed, tiptoe to the living room, and write in silence. Not for long. 15, maybe 20 minutes. But every night, like clockwork. I never asked what she was writing. She never offered. And that silence, that careful omission, became more intimate than anything we had shared in months. She also started folding my laundry. That's how I knew something was really wrong. She used to hate touching my clothes. Said I folded t-shirts like I was angry at fabric. But now, everything was folded perfectly. Socks matched. Underwear stacked. Like she was trying to erase all signs that she had ever criticized me. Like she wanted to leave things tidy before something ended. Then there was the dinner. It was a Thursday. She cooked. A full meal. Salmon, roasted vegetables, some kind of rice with lemon zest. She set the table. Candles. Napkins. Even wine glasses, which we hadn't touched in weeks. It looked like a peace offering. Or a wake. She didn't say why she made it. Just smiled, said, "Thought we could eat together like we used to." We sat down. She asked about my day. I lied and said it was fine. I asked about hers. She said, "Quiet." We both knew we weren't talking about our days. I watched her cut her salmon too carefully. Each bite placed on the fork like a ritual. She didn't finish her food. Neither did I. The wine sat untouched between us, growing warmer by the minute. And then, as I started to clear the plates, she said it. Soft, so soft I nearly missed it. "I think we're just pretending now." I froze. Not because I didn't agree, but because I wasn't sure if she meant it as a confession or an accusation. I turned to look at her. She was staring at her hands. No tears. No drama. Just tired honesty. The kind you give someone when you're finally ready to leave, but still hoping they'll ask you to stay. But I didn't. I couldn't. I said, "Yeah, I think so too." And that was the last real thing we ever said to each other. The days that followed were blurry. We moved through the apartment like polite ghosts. She still made coffee. I still took the trash out. But something was missing. Something that used to buzz in the air between us. A tension. A spark. Even the resentment had dried up. All that was left was logistics. I think she was waiting for me to end it. But I didn't. And she didn't. Because some people don't break things. They just stop watering them. And one morning, I woke up to find her side of the closet empty. No note. No voicemail. Just a voicemail box that rang once before disconnecting. The dent in the pillow was finally gone. She had taken even that with her. It's strange how absence can be louder than presence. When Maribel left, she didn't slam the door. She didn't leave boxes or a mess or even her signature scent on the sheets. She vanished like fog off a mirror, slowly, quietly, completely. And still, I kept expecting to hear the sound of her keys in the lock. I'd catch myself setting 2 mugs down in the morning, folding her sweaters that weren't there. I thought grief would be dramatic, cinematic. But it wasn't. It was subtle, mundane. The sound of a phone that doesn't ring. A closet that breathes easier. For a while, I let myself rot in that space. I replayed everything. The messages, the storage unit, the notebook she took with her. I imagined her with someone else, smiling in that other life like I had never happened. Like I had been a chapter she skipped through. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. But then, a strange thing started to happen. The silence stopped feeling like punishment. It started feeling like permission. Permission to think. To breathe. To ask questions I'd buried beneath. "I'm fine. And whatever you want, babe." And slowly, painfully, I began to understand something I hadn't wanted to see back then. Maribel hadn't just left me. She had freed me. Freed me from the slow drip of uncertainty. From the way I molded myself into silence just to keep her near. From the loop of apologizing for being someone she never actually loved, only tolerated. She didn't leave because I was broken. She left because she needed to feel more alive. And I needed to finally stop shrinking to fit someone else's love. It took me 3 weeks to get rid of the pillow. I bought new ones. Firm ones. Ones she would have hated. I repainted the bedroom. Took down the prints she picked out. Replaced them with artwork from a local market. Bold colors. Weird textures. Nothing symmetrical. Nothing safe. I got a cat. His name is Francis. He hates silence. Meows at walls. Follows me like a shadow. Sometimes I talk to him like he's her. Just to hear how the words sound now that I'm not afraid of being misunderstood. I even took a road trip. Not to escape. To arrive. I visited places I used to say we'd go to someday. Ate alone in roadside diners. Listened to music she would have rolled her eyes at. I was lonely, yes. But I was also finally mine again. And then, 2 months later, I got a postcard. No return address. Just an image of a foggy pier, and one line, scribbled in her unmistakable handwriting. "I'm sorry for who I wasn't brave enough to be with you." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't cry. Didn't crumble. I smiled. Because for the first time in a very, very long time, I didn't need her apology. I had already forgiven both of us.